Suspicion keeps us apart. Suspicion, why torture me?
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a new episode of Chatting with Lady C. Hello Mum, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, honey. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Oh, good. Oh.
So I saw yesterday the first episode on the farm.
Yes, Celebs on the farm.
Yes, Celebs on the farm, yes.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it very much. It was a very funny entering into the show.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you love the way everybody was dressed?
Yeah, everybody came as they would dress up if they were in the middle of a city.
Yes.
So it's a bit funny.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good show. For those of you who are interested, this is Celebs on the Farm on MTV in England every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday for the next 2 weeks at 9 p.m. It's really wonderfully entertaining, and you're going to see me included get down and dirty with and really grubby with the animals. It was such a joyous experience.
That's very fun. It looks like it's going to be a good season. So I see also you're reading Farmer Chris's book.
Yes, I am. I'm going to ask you to post the book.
Yes.
This is Farmer Chris, who is the judge, and he's a very harsh judge, I've got to tell you, because farming is a very serious and harsh activity. It leaves no room for wishy-washy, namby-pamby stuff, because the animals can't take care of themselves, so the farmers and farmhands have to take care of themselves. The crops can't take care of themselves, so everybody also has to take care of them. So it's really a very make and break world, and he is very good. He's very fair. He's very tough, as I think you saw.
Yes.
But I mean, he really is tough. But he's tough in a good way, and he's tough the way you need to be tough, because that's what's required. And he doesn't take any nonsense from any of us, as he's going to very quickly become apparent. Which I can't say more.
Of course, yeah.
But he really, and you know, but the book is absolutely wonderful. You're bathed in simplicity, decency, positivity, naughtiness as well. I think dear Farmer Chris has had grave trouble keeping his zip up at certain times. He's a real guy. And unfortunately, it got him into trouble. And it's all there in the book. It's an absolutely wonderful book. You learn about farming, and you learn about how harsh a farmer's life is, but how rewarding. And he is a really great guy, and it's a wonderful book. So I would recommend that everybody who is interested in farming buy the book. And Misha will post it, and post where you can get it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, honey.
No worries.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to start off with our questions today. So our first question is from Gail K. Stevens. Dear Lady C, what is your opinion on the death of Captain Tom? Do you think his trip from British Airways greatly increased his chances of getting the virus? And if so, do you think it was worth it?
Wonderful question. To those of you who are living abroad and might not know who Captain Tom is, Captain Tom was somebody who was in the army, who at the age of 100 was knighted by the Queen, so it's just last year, because he started to raise money for the NHS by walking around in his garden on his stroller every day. and this captured the public's imagination in a major way. And he ended up raising tens of millions of pounds. Do you remember?
Yes, I do.
Wonderful man. He went to Barbados over the Christmas season, or just before the Christmas, just before the New Year, with his family. He did not have COVID. He did not have it when he came back, but he then developed pneumonia. But he did not have COVID. He was put in the hospital and got COVID in the hospital and died of it, which is very unfortunate. But he is something of a hero to most of the English at the moment. And there have been calls for a statue to be erected in his honor, and people clapped in acknowledgement of his death. And so, but no, the trip had absolutely nothing to do with catching COVID. It was going into the hospital. I mean, there is a school of thought that if you don't have COVID, once you go into hospital, you're sure to get it.
It's a possibility, yeah.
Which, I mean, I think is a little bit of an exaggeration, but it certainly maximizes the chances.
It does.
I mean, I remember when I had sepsis, and this was years ago now, 2016, and they said to me, did I want to stay in the hospital? I said, absolutely not. I came in here with only sepsis, and I do not intend to die of some other infection. And made them release me. Because I don't know about in America and Australia and South Africa and New Zealand and all the other places that we have our supporters who watch our show, but I can tell you something, in England, you enter a hospital at your peril. And so, next question, honey.
Nice. So for our next question today is from Diana Marchant. Please could Lady C, with all her court knowledge and experience, comment on the judge's view on Harry's latest dealings with the Mail? I understand he won, yet the judge landed him with £30,000 costs. Many thanks, riveted by all your posts, so educational. Kind regards, Diana Marchant.
Well, I love that question, I've got to tell you. Because maybe possibly as well our foreign viewers don't know that Harry sued the Mail for having said that he was not being sufficiently supportive of the army. He sued them for defamation. They offered to settle. They offered to make a donation to Invictus Games. Harry said, no, you need to send that settlement to me, and I will give it to Invictus Games. And they said, no, we're not doing that. We will make the donation to Invictus Games. So the matter could have been settled, but for his obduracy, and it has to be said that there have been very unfavorable comments asking why would Harry be so insistent on the money going to him, for him to hand it on to Invictus Games, when the Mail was perfectly happy to make the settlement to and the donation to Invictus Games. It raises questions that have been asked. Anyway, he proceeds to continue suing. It goes to court. He wins. Mr Justice Nicklin who is now the judge who has taken over from Mr Justice Warby, who has been seconded, I suppose you could say, to the Court of Appeal. So Mr Justice Nicklin is now the senior defamation judge, and it was heard by him. He made the point that Harry was unduly tendentious, which, believe me, coming from a judge, is a huge slap on the wrist. You know that he's basically said, you wasted everybody's time, you are an aggressive little sod, and you had absolutely no right to waste everybody's time. Yes, technically you were right, but actually you are wrong. And he showed his displeasure by slapping Harry with all of the mail's costs, £32,500. So not only has Harry had to pay his own costs, but he has had to pay the mail's costs. So Harry, of course, has tried to present this as a victory, but it is certainly anything but a victory. It is a massive loss with a tiny little bit of a victory. So he won the battle, but lost the war. And more to the point, he has sufficiently antagonized Mr Justice Nicklin, who will most likely be hearing all of their other libel actions and claims for defamation, by making it clear to the judge that he is tendentious. And for those of you who don't know what tendentious means, it means unnecessarily aggressive in the promotion of a cause. So, in other words, Harry has almost, but not quite, been accused of being a vexatious litigant. He has certainly been accused of being unnecessarily aggressive. And in my book, that constitutes a huge loss. Do you think that sounds like a huge loss to you?
Yeah, it sounds like he's trying to boost about winning, but he has lost at the same time.
That's right. He won the battle, but lost the war. And so he was awarded £2,500 damages, which would have, had it been settled, all damages, and I would imagine it was going to be considerably more than that. I haven't bothered to ask my contacts in the mail, but it would have been a lot more than that, I would have thought, as a donation to the charity. So Harry's pocketed £2,500, lost £30,000 in terms of the mail's legal fees, plus however many tens of thousands of pounds his own costs will have been. So Harry, tendentious Harry, is maybe 60, 70 or 80,000 pounds out of pocket. So if that's a victory, spare me from success. Next question, honey.
No worries. So for our next question today is from Honesty and Truth. If Meghan is speaking the truth and the palace dictated that she gets her Christian names removed from Archie's birth certificate, does that mean that Rachel Meghan HRH, the Duchess of Sussex, is no longer recognised as the lawful mother of baby Archie? It seems to me the birth certificate states that a woman enrolled at the Portland Hospital as HRH, the Duchess of Sussex, gave birth to Archie. And I can only infer that Meghan's claims to the palace forced her to remove her names implied they realised that woman and Meghan were not the same person. Is that a reasonable assumption to make?
Wow! What do you think of that question?
It's deep down.
Oh, well, that goes right to the heart of the matter, of course, and hits the nail right on the head. Yes, any reasonable person presented with the facts as they have been stated by Meghan would have very good cause for inferring that if the palace forced her, as she has said, to remove her Christian names, which are the sole identifying unique feature that links Meghan definitively to being Meghan, well, yes, I think it's a perfectly reasonable assumption to make. That I'm not saying that this is what happened, and certainly for legal reasons, I would never imply that this is what happened. But I think it is as valid an inference to draw as any other, because let's look at the facts. Rachel Meghan, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex, is identified after the birth of that child as the mother of that child. She gave birth to that child, according to that document. 6 weeks later, the Rachel Meghan's names are removed, according to her, at the dictation of the palace. The palace, of course, have denied that they dictated any such thing, which rather reminds one of Mandy Rice Davis's comment when she was asked if she had slept with Lord Astor in the Profumo case, and she was told that he had denied having slept with her, and she said, well, of course, he would say that, wouldn't he? And really, this is a situation where that riposte could very accurately be attributed to this situation. There are other possible explanations, which I will not be going into at this point, because I have not been asked what they could be. But what I will say is that the palace's and Meghan's conflict over who was responsible for it, it does not add up. What the palace are denying and what Meghan is asserting, somebody is clearly not speaking the truth, somebody is clearly obfuscating, and somebody is clearly covering up something. And yes, it is a perfectly reasonable inference to draw that a woman by the name of Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex gave birth to that child, but by removing the names Rachel Meghan, it is a perfectly reasonable inference to draw that that woman was not Rachel Meghan, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. In the light of the changes that were made to that birth certificate, that is as reasonable an inference to draw as any other inference, and in fact might be even a more reasonable inference to draw than many of the other nonsensical things that have been bandied about recently, such as the fact that Meghan changed her name on the child's birth certificate so that the birth certificate would accord with her other papers. Excuse me, it's utter rubbish. You know, a mother's name does not need to match up on her passport with the child's name on its birth certificate. I've never heard such nonsense in my life. I mean, if that's the sort of pap that they're trying to purvey, I mean, really, I would suggest that they should go to the nearest lavatory and flush it, because believe me, it is manure. And what do you think of all of that?
I think, yeah, if you put down your name and you're happy with that, there's no point of changing it.
Also, of course, the reality is, and this is where the whole situation means that truth and honesty has been reasonable in the inference she has drawn. Had Meghan's Christian names not been put down, had Meghan's Christian names not been put down on the birth certificate, a reasonable amendment would have been to put down her Christian names. The reverse, I'm afraid, suggests exactly what truth and honesty has inferred. Whether this is an accurate inference or not is beside the point. But this is the sort of problem that has arisen because of Meghan and Harry's conduct throughout. And they are entirely responsible for all the speculation. And I can only say that I would hope that after all of this, that the Queen reinstitutes the custom of the Home Secretary being present at the birth of each royal child, so that there can be absolutely no doubt. Whether the doubt is reasonable or not is something else again. But there must be no doubt, reasonable or otherwise, that that child was legitimate, and that that child is not a latter-day version of the warming pan baby. And on that note, I will say, I think we can ask the next question.
No worries. So for our next question today, and our final question, is from Sally Walder. Do you see the palace responding in any ways to this situation?
What do you think of that question?
I think they will respond, but not be just be calm and clean about it.
Well, I can assure Sally Walder that there has been frantic activity behind the scenes for some considerable length of time. In fact, from while the speculation started, there has been tremendous activity behind the scenes. Will the palace respond officially? That's not the same thing as will they respond. They have already slightly responded by saying that Meghan was not speaking the truth when she said that they had dictated the change of the birth certificate, because Meghan didn't obviously realize that by saying what she said, she was implying that the child was born of a surrogate, and that the surrogate had gone into the hospital checking in under the name Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan quite obviously didn't realise that that was an inference that people could draw and would draw and have drawn. Meghan didn't realise that. And so the palace have actually gone to the trouble of trying to massage the situation, to remove the suspicion and the inference that the child was indeed the product of a surrogacy, because the palace is very aware, as I think are most rational people, that the implications arising out of such a scenario, considering the overt and flagrant way in which Meghan was pregnant, are so enormous and so damaging that they will do anything to try to keep a lid on this situation. And to abide by the established custom of not commenting. So I would think that the likelihood, unless their hand is forced in some major way, they are not going to comment. Not only because this situation is so awkward, they would prefer that the speculation continue and that it dies down of its own accord eventually, on the principle, and this too shall come to pass, because nothing lasts forever. And that it's only a matter of time before this story is overtaken by other events. Of course, though, bad pennies have a way of cropping up time and again, and this is a bad penny. So my own feeling, and I have articulated this feeling quite clearly, privately and professionally behind the scenes, is that this is the one situation that cries out for clarity, because the public are absolutely right. Wherever there is a doubt, and Meghan and Harry are the ones who have created the doubts by their own conduct. It's not as if to say that this is idle speculation born of nothing. This is speculation born of their conduct during the pregnancy, surrounding the birth, and subsequent to the birth, leading up to her latest comment about the fact that the palace are the ones who dictated the removal of her purely identifying features, incidentally. She obviously had no idea what she was actually saying. The public have a right to know. The monarchy is a hereditary institution governed by certain laws. It embodies the law. The Queen embodies the law. The people of this country have an absolute right, and all of the other countries, incidentally, that are members of the British monarchy, and the Commonwealth monarchy. I mean, Jamaica, for instance, has the Queen as its head of state. All Commonwealth citizens and British citizens who support the monarchy have a right. This is not a privilege, it is a right to know that their monarch is lawfully born and bred, and that it is and there can be no excuse or justification for the secrecy and the convolutions that have taken place over the birth of this child. I think the whole thing stinks to high heaven, and I think that it is going to continue stinking, and Meghan and Harry may succeed in shutting down the internet to shut down people so that people will not continue to speculate about their conduct. But the reality is people are speculating about something because of their conduct. And I would hope that the palace will take on board the fact, as they took on board after 1688, that the British people and all citizens of all countries that are members of the monarchy have the assurance beyond the shadow of a doubt, whether the doubt is reasonable or unreasonable is quite beside the point, that their potential monarch is validly and lawfully in the line of succession. And that's it in a nutshell. And I stand by every word I say. I have been very careful what I have said. I am not accusing anybody of anything. I am simply pointing out the various beliefs that have arisen, whether these beliefs are reasonable or unreasonable. And I reiterate, I say all of this being very mindful not only of what I'm saying, but for legal reasons. I'm accusing nobody of anything fraudulent or anything untoward or anything unlawful or anything incorrect. What I am asserting very firmly and definitely is that Harry and Meghan's conduct has created this situation, and it continues. And I, for one, have to tell you, I get too many letters on this subject. Too many letters. And if I know that if I'm getting them, the palace is getting a whole heap more. And I would recommend, as several people have actually recommended in the comments section, that the palace learn from the debacle of the Wales' marriage and its unraveling. They pretended that everything was perfectly all right. Richard Aylard, Prince Charles's private secretary at the time, actually went in to the Express and told Nick Lloyd, who was the editor of the Daily Express and whose wife, Eve Pollard, had bought the serialization of my book, Diana in Private, The Princess Nobody Knows, for more money than had ever been paid for a royal biography, because, of course, it's revealed that Diana wanted out, that Diana was having an affair, that Charles was having an affair, that Diana had an eating disorder. And Richard Aylard went in, and I was told this from Alan Frame, the deputy editor. So I know it happened, that he went in and told Nick Lloyd, oh, you know, your wife has bought this rubbish book by Lady Colin Campbell, who has no idea what she's talking about. It's all rubbish. The Wales' marriage is perfectly happy. All this speculation is nonsense. Lies, lies, lies. And you can depend upon it. Behind the scenes, there will be moves to completely ignore this insofar as they can get away with ignoring it and minimizing it. But I have to say, this is one situation that should not be minimized. And I cannot say that firmly enough. The public, and I will say this once more and then end this, the public have a right to know that all heirs to the throne who stand a chance of acceding to the throne are legitimate. And if they are not, they must be removed from the line of succession. And if the doubt persists whether they are legitimate or not, if the palace and the couple involved will continue to refuse to verify the legitimacy of the child should be removed from the line of succession as well. It's as simple as that. You know, in life, actions need to have consequences, because the alternative is that this is eroding justifiably the respect that people have for the monarchy. And on that note, I will say thank you very much, honey. Thank you all for listening. I hope this has been of interest to you. And please keep the questions coming in. And thanks for the wonderful questions. And by the way, buy Farmer Chris's book. It's really a great read.
I'll also tune in tonight at 9 p.m. on MTV if you want to continue watching the show Celebrities on the Farm. And thank you very much. We hope you enjoyed this episode. So please hit the like button, subscribe and share with your friends. Thank you very much and goodbye.